Okay, so here is the second video regarding Faraday's law of induction. And this is, like I said before, Faraday's law of induction says that when you have a changing magnetic flux through a surface, you get an induced EMF, EMF being the electromotive force that drives current around a circuit. So there's a couple ways you can do that. I wrote here for this particular loop what the magnetic flux would be if assuming the magnetic field B is constant throughout the surface. The area of the surface is just length times width, obviously, and then we multiply by the cosine of the angle between them because we're talking about a dot product. So pretty much if you change any of these variables here, B, L, W, or cosine of theta, if you change any of those, you're going to get an EMF. And I'm just going to talk about a changing magnetic field because that's the easiest one to draw. But like I said, if you changed L, if you changed W, or if you spun this whole thing around and changed theta with time, you would get an EMF, and it would pretty much be exactly the same as what I'm about to describe. But let's say you have this closed loop, and you have this magnetic field B coming through the surface, and let's say it changes with time. So it's coming from some source, and let's say it's increasing with time. So that means that the magnetic flux through this surface is going to be increasing with time, as I've shown here. And Faraday's law tells us that the EMF E is equal to the negative derivative of the magnetic field times everything else, and that's going to give you the current times the resistance by Ohm's law, assuming that there's a resistor someplace in this circuit. I didn't draw it in there, but there could be, and keeping everything else constant in this situation. This negative sign is what's called Lenz law. And Lenz law, I wrote it up here, it gives you the direction that the current is going to flow. And Lenz law says that the current is going to flow to oppose the change in magnetic flux. Now, what does that mean? Well, in our example, we have an increasing magnetic flux through the surface, as the way I've drawn it, because the magnetic field is getting stronger, and therefore the magnetic flux is getting stronger through the surface. And so a current is going to flow in this loop to oppose that, and hopefully you guys know the right-hand rule, and you can kind of see that the way I've drawn this current, it'll create a magnetic field opposite this one right here. And that's what it means when it says it opposes the change in magnetic flux. Now, why does it do that? Well, let's say it didn't. Let's say the B field increases and the flux increases, and let's say the current flowed in the other direction. Well, that current would produce its own B field going in the same direction, which would again create more of an EMF, which would create more increasing magnetic flux, and pretty much you get a runaway effect, which violates the conservation of energy. So you can kind of think of Lenz law as the conservation of energy if you want to, because to do it to do it in any other way would give you like an unlimited amount of energy by pretty much doing nothing. So that's Lenz's law. That's just a simple example of how you can change the magnetic flux to produce an EMF. Like I said, you can change L, W, or cosine theta, and you'll still get an EMF. I just picked dB dt because I didn't have to draw anything more. So um, that's one example, one application, so to speak, of Faraday's law of induction. In reality, I would say the most common way of doing it, especially in generators or dynamos, is to change theta with time by like spinning something around. you change theta with time and you get an EMF that way. But I decided not to try to draw that, and also I would have to write out more equations because the derivative of cosine is negative sine and so on and so forth. So anyway, I hope that helped.